Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this special edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. First, our major stories. The divisional officer for Douala II bans the fabrication and use of knives and sharp objects in his area of command. The DO says anyone found with a knife or sharp object will be arrested and detained. The decision of the DO follows the attack and assassination of a 60-year-old French national in the Makia neighborhood, that is in the Douala II subdivision. Away from that, Cameroon joins the international community to commemorate World Children's Day at a time when the rights of some children are being violated. Some of these children are victims of sexual abuse, torture, early marriages, forced labor, and other vices. Meanwhile, some of these children living in conflict zones have been caught in between the crossfire of the crisis, jeopardizing their fundamental rights. Tonight, we'll highlight some of the plights faced by children in Cameroon in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. Those are major stories. Stay with us for details and more. Thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. We begin right here in the city of Douala, where some denizens in the Douala II subdivision appraised the order of the divisional officer banning the fabrication, commercialization, and possession of knives and daggers. This to them will lower the rate of knife attacks, which have claimed the lives of many in the subdivision. Some persons, however, question how the forces of law and order will enforce the decision, given that it will be difficult for it to tell or for them to tell if someone is carrying a knife on him or not. We have details with Innocent Arze.
The Douala II DO's decision to ban the fabrication, commercialization and possession of knives and daggers is contained in a press release dated November 16, 2024. This follows repeated deadly knife attacks in the subdivision. The first ones are the French national stabbed to death in the Makia neighborhood, weeks after the microbe attack in Bali that left a man killed with a knife. For example, recently at Marché des Pommes, 2 men fought and stabbed themselves, resulting to the death of one on the spot over the sum of 5,000 francs CFA. This phenomenon has implanted fear within denizens of a knife attack at any moment. I am afraid because I could be attacked at any time and my goods carried away. In our quarter, New Bell, we live in fear, aggressions here and there. It is a new normal.
Nous vivons avec trop de peur dans ce quartier.
With the ban on the fabrication, sales and movement with knives, till further notice by the divisional officer, some persons in Douala II appraised the injunction. According to them, this will reduce attacks on people with knives and daggers.
I like that vision of the sous-prefect, because those are the things that they take to aggress, to steal people in the night, to even shoot you with a knife and then do evil.
Despite this appraisal, others raise a major concern, like the persistent movement with knives by criminals.
If they put the knife inside and hide it without a long garment, without all that thing, how would they know?
Anyone who is caught carrying a knife around should be jailed, but for those who need it for their job, like meat vendors, can be considered. Just like the Joe has instructed, the population of Douala II implore forces of law and order to enforce the decision by searching thoroughly suspects and ensure culprits or violators of the Joe's order are arrested and punished.
Same vein, 3 out of the 4 people who allegedly murdered the French lady Martin Valerie at the Congo neighborhood in Douala II area have been arrested. Elements of the Douala Judicial Police took the culprits to the scene of the incident for a reconstruction of the facts. Annabila has more. On the night of the 13th to the 14th of November 2024, at about 10:30 p.m., 4 individuals armed with daggers attacked Mr. Mambu Jean-Pierre and Mrs. Martin Valérie René Michel, a French citizen on holidays in Cameroon. The latter, who tried to resist the criminals, was seriously injured, reportedly by Mansour Haman, before their belongings were carried away. Mrs. Martin Valerie was transferred to the Lakentine Hospital for urgent medical attention, but she died as a result of her injuries. Subsequent investigations carried out on the instructions of the Delegate General for National Security
quickly led to the arrest of 3 of the 4 offenders, as well as other accomplices who had helped them escape and also concealed their work equipment. The offenders were also caught in illegal possession of military clothing. They will all be brought before the government commissioner of the Douala Military Court in the days ahead.
Still on insecurity, more than 10 suspected armed robbers have been arrested by elements of the 1st Gendarmerie region in Yaounde. They were arrested during a raid that was organized by law enforcement officers within some neighborhoods. The law enforcement officers seized many items during the raid, amongst them marijuana. Smaji Kangable is a man of that story.
Displayed at the esplanade of the 1st Region Gendarmerie premises in Yaounde are a variety of items ranging from gas bottle, flat screen television, gadgets belonging to the Cameroon Armed Forces, telephones, laptops, gas cylinder, marijuana and tramadol. The items are not for an auction sale, but are items seized by the elements of the 1st Region Gendarmerie during an operation in neighborhoods within their zone of control.
This operation is a result of the action that the Minister of the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Galax Atoga, started since last year. So we are here to respect the instructions to fight against those who committed crimes. So it's our job.
The elements of the gendarmerie say the over 10 persons who were arrested were involved in harassment of civilians, trafficking and consumption of hard drugs.
Advice actors of makeup to stand fine because we are here to fight against them.
They say with the end of year approaching, such surprise operations will multiply to ensure the safety of the Yaounde city dwellers. But the population must be on their side.
Collaborate with gendarmerie because our job is to secure the population.
Those who were arrested have been handed to the State Council for justice to take its course.
The parents of 13-year-old Iben Giselle are still in search of their daughter who has been missing for days now. She was lastly seen accompanied by a classmate on her way back home. This incident that occurred in Bonaberry, Douala IV subdivision exposes some of the threats faced by children in our society today, especially at a time when Cameroon joins the international community to celebrate Children's Day. We have details with Cedric Chakudio.
13-year-old student who goes by the name Ebena Giselle Emmanuel was kidnapped since Friday on his way back to his house in Bonaberry, Douala IV subdivision. The last time he was seen was after he finished school. His family are still in shock. He left the house in the morning, then went to school. In the evening when I came back from work, I didn't see him. His classmates and teachers told me he was in school till the end of the classes. They all saw him. But where is my child? His classmate with who he was says they were together until when they crossed the road, but when he turned back, he said his friend and thought he went back home on his own. The kidnappers, who are continuously calling his parents, demand a ransom in exchange of their child. If not, they will receive a bad news on social media. I received a call from a group of people who said they are having my son. They told me if I wish to see my child back, I have to give them a sum of money. If not, I will see his pictures on social media. This incident happens at a time where Cameroon joins the world to celebrate the World Children's Day, in a context where children are exposed to rapes, drug abuse and kidnappings. For Ebene Giselle Emmanuel, investigations are ongoing.
Now to health. The Association of Forensic Specialists in Cameroon are denouncing an abuse of their profession by a group of untrained forensic medics. Their worries come after a newly created Association of Forensic Doctors announced an event to hold on the 20th of November. Speaking to the press, Dr. Patricia Com, the president, highlighted that there is only one association recognized by the Minister of Justice and the Ministry of Health. Asa Lucy Lengo, a health lady, has the details.
The Cameroon Association of Forensic Doctors, recognized by the state and medical council, are expressing worries about the creation of a new association known in French as Société Savante de Médecine Légale et Experte du Cameroun.
Dans aucun pays du monde, il y a 2 sociétés savantes, ou 3.
Dr. Patricia Comjom-Ghana, president of the Association of Forensic Doctors in Cameroon, condemns what they qualify as an attempt to cause confusion.
Académique, nous ne serons pas arrivés à ce type de débat aujourd'hui.
Her reaction comes after the publication of an information about a congress to be organized by the new association from the 20th of November.
Donné à éclaircir, il y a une seule société camerounaise de médecine légale reconnue par le gouvernement camerounais, par aussi bien le ministère de la Santé que le ministère de la Justice.
Dr. Patricia Com goes further to say the new association created lacks expertise and proper training to be qualified as forensic experts. The group is considered as illegitimate with no legal basis proven.
Pour le médecin légiste, c'est un auxiliaire de justice. Nous travaillons sur la base d'une réquisition.
These specialists serve as auxiliaries of justice, conduct autopsies, assess cases of assaults and accidents. Not putting an end to such practices, according to the president, will erode public confidence in forensic services, making it difficult for trained professionals to gain credibility.
Now to our sports page. Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinals. Cape Verde and Guinea, alongside former winners of the trophy Ghana, will miss out on the Africa Sosa Jamboree next year. At the end of the qualifiers on Tuesday, Botswana made a return to the competition after 12 years of absence. We have details with our sportsman, Smart Chikangebro.
Out of the 24 teams that were present in Côte d'Ivoire during the Africa Cup of Nations earlier this year, 17 will be traveling to Morocco for the 2025 edition of the African Football Jamboree, amongst them the defending champions Côte d'Ivoire. At the end of the qualifiers series Tuesday, 7 of the teams that were in Côte d'Ivoire didn't make it to Morocco. Amongst them is former winners of the trophy, Ghana, who had a very poor run during the qualifiers, the Gambia and Namibia, who were the revelations of the tournament in Côte d'Ivoire, alongside quarter-finalists of the 2023 edition, Cape Verde and Guinea, will miss out in the Morocco's adventure. Mauritania and Guinea-Bissau are the other dropouts. Comoros, that gave Cameroon a run for their money during the 2022 edition, hosted by Cameroon, returned to the Continental Jamboree after missing out the edition in Côte d'Ivoire. After 12 years in the cold, Botswana have also returned to the Afcon. The other surprise participants are Sudan and Benin, who earned their places on the final day of the qualifiers. At the end of the qualifiers, 25-year-old Moroccan forward Brahim Diaz emerged as top scorer with 7 goals. The highly anticipated tournament will kick off in December next year and will take place in Morocco.
Smart Chikangebro ending this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. My guest tonight is a child rights defender. She's known as Dr. Doreen Binyan Bian. It's a pleasure having you on Talking Point tonight.
Good evening, Emma. Thank you so much for having me on this wonderful program where we can talk and change the lives of children.
Dr. Doreen, Cameroon joins the world to commemorate World Children's Day. This celebration comes at a time when several kids in the northwest, southwest and far north regions are caught in between crossfire of the crisis. Many of them have been killed, with others witnessing the killing of their parents or loved ones. How can such tragic incidents affect children?
I think these are grievous incidents that can really affect children. Before I actually say how it can affect children, I'll tell you that we rounded up with a child protection needs assessment, and these are some of the things that we found out, that violence, when children are exposed to violence, they face severe psychosocial trauma. They go through post-traumatic disorder, anxiety, depression, and we have noticed that in the Northwest, Southwest, and the Far North regions, which covered all our areas for the child protection needs assessment, children go through a lot. Some of them feel very, very insecure. Imagine a child standing in front of you, and that child was killed. That child has witnessed the killing of parents, the killing of loved ones. The child will feel insecure. The child does not trust any authority. And in addition, some of these children have been exposed to join armed forces and armed groups, and some of them, of course, face a lot of stigma and rejection in communities because most community members think that they are children that are actually naughty. Some of them also have limited development and emotional challenges because most of them do not have access to education. Most of them do not have access to healthy relationships. They do not trust the people they relate with. So, and of course, so these children go through a lot, and such incidents, I can tell you, only expose children to severe psychological trauma, feeling rejection, and they will think it is our responsibility to make these children come to.
A lot of these children are victims of sexual abuse, early marriages, forced labor, to name but these. In a general perspective, what's your assessment on the respect of children's rights in this country?
I think the issues of child rights in Cameroon is only being respected to a limited degree, despite that the government has put in place some policies. But then we still have children lacking access to basic services, such as education and health services. And this is a significant problem with education gaps already witnessed amongst children who live in these socio-political conflict and crisis affected regions. And in Cameroon, we still witness a lot of children going through child labor, and that is a severe issue. I think those aspects need to be looked into. Child marriage is still upheld. Like I said, our recent child protection needs assessment revealed 74% of our respondents confirming child marriage in the Far North region. And in the Northwest and Southwest, we equally witness child marriage, which is not very common in this area. So you bear with me that the crisis have aggravated that. And of course, I think those aspects is because the rights of children are not being upheld as far as that is concerned. Children too face limited protection from the government, from major authorities and other key stakeholders. Children are being killed on a daily basis. Children live in fear. Children live in trauma. Children live in what we call hyperactive or hypertensity, where a child sleeps and the child is afraid. Sometimes they can just get up and run. During our needs assessment, I can assure you that we had some of these responses coming from them. They live in fear. They have nightmares. It's simply because their rights are not being upheld to the extent they are supposed to be respected.
Recently, a 5-year-old child was kidnapped, raped, and later killed by unknown individuals in the city of Douala. We just saw the reports done by Siri Chakutio that a 13-year-old girl was kidnapped while she was on her way back home from school. We have many of such cases that have been reported. Authorities are saying nothing about it. Is the government not expected to play the role when it comes to the protection of the rights of children in this country?
The government is normally supposed to play a role. It is a moral obligation of the government to protect its citizens, and children are not exempted from these citizens. Remember, children's rights are human rights. So it is the responsibility of the government to ensure policy implementation. I can tell you that the government of Cameroon is trying or striving or doing everything it takes to put in place some of these policies. The question now is, what about the implementation? Those who are supposed to implement, do they actually implement it? During this year, it started last year in November, Street Child of Cameroon supported the government with funds from UNICEF, where we designed standard operating procedures for child protection case management, and we also played an active role in designing the child protection mechanisms and guidelines for working with unaccompanied and separated children. And recently, the Ministry of Social Affairs have signed those laws and approved those laws. These are the extents the government is going to ensure that children are protected. But now, do we actually implement the laws? And it is also the responsibility of the government to join with key stakeholders to raise awareness, because community members need to actually understand the rights of children and how to respect some of these rights, but sometimes it's also or almost neglected. And it is the government's responsibility to also support in bringing up conflict resolution strategies, especially within these affected regions, so that we can see how to remedy the situation of children, especially children associated with armed forces and armed groups. We think that the government needs to play a severe role as far as that is concerned, to see how to protect these children, remove them from there, and then reintegrate these children back without giving the opportunity for the children to feel like they are facing rejection or are being stigmatized.
As someone who has been working closely with children, how are Cameroonians as a whole supposed to assist a child who is being abused or neglected?
Thank you so much for this question. I think it is Cameroonians' responsibility, community members' responsibility to protect children. It's not just the government responsibility, it's not just the NGO responsibility or traditional rulers, but everybody has the moral obligation to protect children. And for Cameroonians as a whole, or community members, to be part of this in upholding children's rights and protecting them, they should report cases that are pertaining to children, cases that where children face exploitation, neglect. These should be reported to the appropriate quarters so that actions can be taken. It is the responsibility of community members to ensure that children have access to shelter. There are some unaccompanied and separated children walking along. I think if a Cameroonian or a community member comes across a child like this, they should be able to link this child to either Minas or an NGO that provides safe shelter, so that children can have access to these services. And of course, the government and NGOs can facilitate reunification back to their families. It is our responsibility as Cameroonians to raise awareness on child protection issues in communities, speak up on the challenges that children go through, so that together we can build a friendly environment for children. Cameroonians should support children's education, should make sure parents, community members, make sure children go to school. We have already witnessed a lot of gaps, and we do not want to witness these gaps again. Children should go to school, children should have access to health services and other basic services, so that together we know that we are building a very strong future for Cameroonians that will transform. And of course, why not take us to something that is above realizing Agenda 2035.
Now, Dr. Doreen, from your explanation, it's quite clear that everyone has a role to play when it comes to the protection of the rights of children. Now, let's look at the parents. Are they really playing their role in assuring the protection of the rights of children? What are some of the shortcomings of parents with whom you have worked with on the field?
I think as someone who has been in the field and has had an opportunity to talk with parents and caregivers, some are playing their roles, but some sometimes do not play their roles ignorantly, even though ignorance is not an excuse in front of the law. If we are talking about their strength, I can say we still have parents out there who are committed to the education of their children, but for the fact that they have limited access to resources, we equally still have parents out there who are committed in ensuring that children have access to health services. But then a lot of shortcomings occur down there in the field. Like we said, we work with in conflict-affected regions. That's to say, we work with people going through a lot of challenges. When it comes to discipline, when some parents want to discipline, there is a huge capacity gap there. There's a huge shortcoming there. Most of these parents do not have access to positive parenting skills. And because of the lack of positive parenting skills, the way they will discipline a child is not the usual way which they are going it's not the usual way they would have disciplined a child in a normal setting. And most parents are still really being influenced by the culture, taking into consideration the aspect of child labor. We still see parents who are engaged in child labor. Some of these children go through this without even being sent to school. Some of them focus on working more in the farms. And of course, some of them equally focus on working in chantiers, factories, and other places just to support the running of the house. We still see some parents sending their children to early marriages as a way out to handle their economic challenges. And the findings from our child protection needs assessment, like I said, some parents or some community members confirmed that there are children associated with armed forces and armed groups, not because they so want to, but because they were equally encouraged by their parents, as it is a way of a way out for their economic hardship. Parents feel that they are protected. So these are some of the shortcomings. Parents need to know that it is their responsibility to protect these children, to check on their peers. What are the type of peers does my child dine with? Because some of these children go along with peers that push them to exploitation, abuse, and a lot more. So parents need to really take into consideration this. And on a day like this, when we commemorate Day of the International or World Day of the Child, I think it is important for parents to sit back, reflect on the role they are playing on their children's life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Doreen, for accepting my invitation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emma. I think this is a huge opportunity, but one word before I go, one word recommendation. Parents should be trained on positive parenting training, and if the government can support some of these parents going through severe hardship, it's going to help a lot. And of course, education, as it is said, basic education is free. It should be free, because sometimes the implementation down there is something else, and these children should be supported with learning materials so that together tomorrow we'll rejoice as coming.
Dr. Doreen Binyan, child rights defender based in Boya, Chief Town of the Southwest Region. And it's on that we put an end to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for choosing Equinoxe Television always. Coming up next in some few minutes is Equinoxe with the program Seshaleng Otu, which is guest. That's it. Have a wonderful evening. See you tomorrow, same time. God willing. Bye-bye for now.